Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, this is Redberry Wheel here, and welcome back to my Customs and Courtesies series. This is my last video in the series. In fact, it's a little long, I know, but if you have enjoyed it, please leave a like on this video. I always appreciate the support, and that's what the YouTube algorithm likes. And if you have any questions about anything that I've covered so far, or anything from today's video, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below. So let's go ahead and get started. There are different manners of address that is appropriate for the CAPP setting, but if you don't know what the person's name or rank or grade is, then it's okay to say sir or ma'am. For example, you won't know every single person at encampment, or at least it's very, very difficult to know every single person at encampment. If you're a student and you have never seen this flight commander before, but you know they're a cadet officer, then you'd be like, "Good afternoon, ma'am," or "Good afternoon, sir," and then just go on from there. When addressing cadets, then you would say, like, Cadet Airman Smith or Cadet Staff Sergeant Curry. Something that I had learned not from Civil Air Patrol, but from the Corps of Cadets, was that it's better to put cadet in front of the rank, or the grade, I should say. It's better to put cadet in front of the grade that they are, so that it shows respect for the enlisted personnel who are active duty in the military or who are senior members who are NCOs. So to help distinguish between cadets and senior members, in addition to showing that respect, I recommend adding cadet before the grade and the name of whomever the cadet is that you're addressing. So maybe saying Cadet Staff Sergeant Lullaby, or Cadet Colonel Otter, or something like that. If you are addressing a cadet officer or a senior member, then it is appropriate to say sir or ma'am. Some senior members are enlisted, or they're in the NCO program, and then they normally ask you to refer to them as, like, Tech Sergeant Newbie, or something like that, because they aren't an officer in the military if they have that transferred over grade from their actual career, or they just want to be on a closer level to the cadets and they might find it overly respectful. I always call people sir and ma'am at first for senior members, just to show respect to them, because I also hope to be treated with respect as well. If someone does give you a preference of how they would like to be addressed, as long as it's still respectful, then please do greet them with what they would prefer, just to be courteous to their desires and wishes. If there is an NCO senior member that you're interacting with, you could always address them as just sergeant, unless they are a chief, in which case you would address them as chief. There are a few professions where people prefer you to address them as their profession and not necessarily their grade. For example, chaplain. If there's a lieutenant colonel who is a chaplain, then you might call them Chaplain Smith rather than Lieutenant Colonel Smith. Or if there's a doctor who's in the squadron, they might prefer to be called, like, Dr. Jones rather than Major Jones, because as their profession, they're a doctor, and that's what they would prefer. So just, if people ask you to call them a specific thing, then you can go ahead and call them, like, Chaplain Smith or Dr. Jones. There are different terms of address associated with each grade, and the first few are easy, and then it gets a little bit more complicated. So from Cadet Airman Basic to Cadet Senior Airman, the cadets could be referred to as Cadet Airman or just Cadet. I normally prefer to be more specific because they've obtained that grade, and that attention to detail can really reflect positively on me and can be more well received by the person that I'm interacting with. Then, from Cadet Staff Sergeant to Cadet Senior Master Sergeant, those can be referred to as Sergeant or Cadet. Again, I would normally just say their full name and grade because, out of respect for what they've achieved, that's a little bit more specific. If they're a Chief Master Sergeant, then they would be referred to as Chief or Cadet. In the cadet officer ranks, there are a few of them. If there's a second lieutenant or a first lieutenant, they would be referred to as lieutenant or cadet. If they're a captain, captain or cadet, major, major or cadet. Lieutenant colonel can be called colonel. Colonel can be colonel or cadet. Now, I had already touched on the senior member side. For NCOs, you can call them sergeant or their specific grade. If they're a flight officer, technical flight officer, or senior flight officer, which would be someone who's between 18 or 21 that joins as a senior member, then you can call them flight officer or sir and ma'am. If they are a second lieutenant or a first lieutenant, lieutenant is fine. Captain would be captain, major would be major. Lieutenant colonel and colonel would both be referred to as colonel. There's also brigadier general and major general, and if in those instances you are referring to them in terms of address, then you would call them general. So there's one last thing. If you're ever interacting with someone, you should always use a thank you note afterwards if they did something. So like if someone conducted your promotion review board, it would be good to send them a thank you note like over email and say, "Good afternoon, Captain Smith. Thank you for conducting my promotion review board. It was an excellent experience for me, and I continue to look forward to our work together in Civil Air Patrol. Thank you for your time." And then very respectfully name and rank, CAP, all of that information. Now, there is guidance in the pamphlet. If you want to take a look at it, feel free to do so. I normally just thank people for their contributions and if they're going above and beyond expectations, because recognizing what people are doing really empowers them, as long as you're genuine about it. If you are overthinking people, like for tiny things all the time and every single time they do it, then it may not be as appreciated, because they might think, oh, you're just doing it because you do it and not because you actually are thankful. For example, if you just tell someone, "Thanks for coming to the meeting," every single week, they might not feel appreciated anymore, and it's not specific. So whenever you're thanking someone, make sure you're specific on what you're thanking them for and make sure that it's genuine. So that is everything for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do have questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video or this series, and I will see you soon. So thank you so much for watching, and that is all, folks. Until next time, toodles.